Let me text Wes. Or Monica.
Two.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody that's here for this Community Development Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. In the room with me is Councilman Hudson and Councilman Monica Peters, Mayor Pro Tem Monica Peters, and I'm Chris Williams. We will go ahead and begin with a presentation for the Community Gardens update and request. And I'll go right ahead, man.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm Crystal Mercer, the Community and School Gardens agent for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension, and I'm here to make my last quarter report. And I'm so sorry I wasn't here last year for this, but I'm so happy to be here today. This is my report for May 1st through December 31st. Okay, thank you. And I also want to introduce my new manager, Heather Schaefer. She is our County Extension Director. She joined us last March. And I am here for a couple of things. Number one is to report on what I have done for the community the last year. And also, I'm looking for support for the High Point Public Schools as far as when it comes to providing free soil, free mulch, and just add them to our standard operating procedures. And that's one thing they're not on. We have communities and organizations, but not the High Point Public Schools. And I was assigned to do an assessment survey, so I'll go over that and give you the results. I have had new and restarted schools last year. There were 4 in High Point and also 4 in Greensboro. So there are teachers ready and willing and able to start back with school gardens. Okay. I've added 3 new schools to the community gardens last year. It was Florence Elementary, High Point Central, and Johnson Street. So that shows you there's still a growing need. Well, here's my report of the assessment of the principals and teachers and social workers in the High Point City Schools. 27 were surveyed, and 10 responded. 10 are public, 8 are Title I schools, 2 have active gardens, 4 want to restart their gardens, and 4 were inactive. And I also listed the school levels as well, the grade levels. My first question for the community school, the public schools was, what is the average number of students in your gardening class? Now, the total was 868, and that's just from 10 responses. My next question is, how much are you going to save if we provided soil, mulch, wood mulch, and compost? A total of $9,300. And once again, that's just 10 schools. So there is a need, and it would save them a lot of money. Fairview was one. They've come a long way. They've done a lot of work in the yard, but as you can see from their garden, they needed soil mulch, wood mulch, and also new boards. Another example is Union Hill Elementary. Same situation, soil, they needed that, and they also needed to downsize from 6 to 4 beds just to so they can maintain it better. What do I do? Well, I plan, market, implement, and develop educational workshops and training. So here we go. And also, the city, there was an article into High Point Enterprise, and it talked about the city aims to expand community gardens programs, and that was what we were just discussing about the High Point City Schools. Also, there was a new learning center that was added, and was able to be there, and would just love being around the new school and what they have going on in their garden. Beautiful, beautiful garden. Another marketing. I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's Mo on the Go, and I don't know if you recognize the gentleman in the middle.
Of course, we do.
But that was a great interview. And that is Monique Robinson with WFNY News 2. And we interviewed Burns Hill Community Gardens, okay? Also, I network with community partners in order to coordinate services and develop collaborative services, education, and training. Good example, the Extension Master Gardener Volunteers of Guilford County. They have grants every year, and I was able to talk to some of the school gardens here in High Point. And actually, 2 applied and 2 got grants, and that was High Point Friends School and Fairview. So they received a grant of $250 through the Extension Master Gardener grant program. Another thing I was asked is to help with beautification. And I don't know if you recognize this place, but it's the Community Development Housing area. And I brought in a team of specialists because they were having trouble with the soil. The soil is really compacted and solid. And so we made recommendations that they're going to need to put in pine needles and let them sit for at least a year, but of course they would have to keep adding once some start to blow away. But when you keep adding it, it also softens up the soil, and that way we'll be able to put in some plants. So we also offered the plant list, how to amend the soil, and how long it was going to take, because everybody wants instant. So you got to also offer realistic expectations. Oh, this is another good one. This is High Point, the United States Postal Service. And they, if you've been recently, the planter boxes out front, some are damaged. They don't have anything in there. There's nothing really showing the beauty of that area. So they are going to remove those planters and redo them. I was so happy to hear that. So they're going to remove the planters. We gave them a complete plant list. We also did a soil test. So we're going to probably have to come back and do more soil tests once they remove everything and start back over. So we'll be happy to come back and do soil tests. And we do not want them to plant anything until we know what that soil nutrients include, okay? So we're here. September is Hunger Action Month. The Gifford County had food pantry tours. This is just some pictures of our booth and our participation. The High Point Community Gardens, I had a tour back in June, and here's a list of the participating gardens, and this is one of my favorite pictures. Two young ladies were at the bus stop, and they were just standing there just looking at the sunflowers, and I said, may I take a picture? And they said, yes, you can take a picture. And I just love this. So I just love going by the area and seeing those big, beautiful sunflowers back in the summer. And it's bountiful harvest. 12th Annual High Point Unity Festival and Local Fair. We were there to have our booth and help with any questions and give out samples, and just had a wonderful time. So I just loved it. Thank you. I think you see some familiar faces in there.
See an in-law there, yeah.
High Point chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, they volunteered at Burns Hill Community Garden and Food Pantry. And they reached out to me because they said, we really want to do a service project. Who can we help? And Burns Hills was right there on the list. Once a month, I have the High Point Community Garden Leaders Meetings. We had a grand old time, as you can see. Also, I'm involved with the Black Church Food Security Network event. We had a Black Farms tour. They're concerned about food insecurity. They want to network with more and more Black and brown farmers, and we went on a tour. We got on a bus, went around Gifford County, and we also ended up in Rural Hall to find our brown and Black farmers. But one was Eggman's Eggs in Pleasant Garden. The Memorial Industrial Community was in Rural Hall, and the PDYNF Community Gardens was right here in Guilford County. I was asked to present at the High Point Community Advisory Council. And I work with communities, neighborhood associations, external organizations, and the general public to establish gardens. I also did a presentation at the City of High Point Library, their Learning Garden, and you can see that I made sure there was hands-on learning, and also had enough plants to divide up and give away that day for the participants to go home and plant. We had a climate change about North Carolina Piedmont. I get tons of questions. Are we ever going to change our zone, our growing zone? Our growing zone is 7B, and a lot of people think because of the climate change and we're getting hotter, maybe our growing zone should change to a higher number. But according to this workshop we had, no, it's not going to change. It is what it is. And of course, we have our rainy seasons and our hard rains and our humidity, and that's pretty much us for North Carolina and for the Piedmont. My goals for 2023, my priorities is to support the community garden leaders, expand High Point Community Garden grants, serve on the Urban Ag Committee, and collaborate with High Point Community Development and the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. I really like to start a discussion on having a 4-H club in High Point. We have programs, but not a club. And we can just talk about it and see if it's feasible and if it's needed here. Upcoming events for 2023. Seeds to Share, please invite your friends, your neighbors, your members of your congregation to our Seeds to Share event. Free seeds for community and school gardens. It's a float-in event, Saturday, February 11th, and you have a flyer, 9 to 12 o'clock. We were blessed with a lot of seeds this year, so I got a lot to give away, okay? And here's the list of the events that are coming up, and one is very special to me, and that's Gardens Under Glass. We have seniors who are not participating in gardening. It's because there's a lot of reasons why, but to help get their interest into gardening, how about something called Garden Under Glass? There's, we're going to have a workshop. They can build a garden in a glass container about this size, and take it, when at the end of the workshop, they can take it home and put it on a nightstand or anywhere they want to, and they get to garden, they get to participate. So we're going to have a senior event, it's in May, called Gardens Under Glass. Here are the committees I associate with in High Point and Greensboro. And I just want to thank you so much. I want to thank you also for paying a third of my salary. So I truly appreciate that. Any questions?
I have so many. But I'm going to try to deal, first I want to talk about what, no pun intended, but don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but how would it look when it comes to supplying, like the city's supplying soil to the schools? Do we like bring a major dump to a specific site or to each site? Do we have any idea what that would look like?
Well, right now, the city's been giving away free soil and free mulch anyway, so they are responsible for bringing a truck in to get things. But if they were under the new policy, we could still offer the services with Ingleside.
Okay.
Okay.
So it would be
And
picked
it
up
depends.
from-
It doesn't change. Even with our regular gardeners,
Right.
it's still treated the same with the schools, public schools.
Because I'm imagining that the mulch and stuff that does that come from like our leaf collections and shrubberies and yard waste and et cetera, et cetera. So we
This
should
is just an
have,
expansion because the schools were not under community
Right.
gardens at one time. They're adding the schools, so we're having, I'm sure you know better than me, we started with 20 community gardens, and I imagine with the schools, it's 40.
Well, the gardens, we have 17 now. Last year it was
schools?
14, I added 3.
The schools?
Mhm, the
Yeah.
schools,
Imagine.
It could have been more, but, during, you have teachers that move, you have people who lose interest, then the pandemic came, and then the principals were really concerned about getting those grades back up. So it could have been that many, but right now, I've added 3 last year, and so we're up to 17.
okay. Any heartburn on approving or supporting? That with
I
us?
asked them to do it 5 years ago, so I figured, wonderful. Like, yay, at last. And I know Mayor Pro Tem Peters and myself, we both have children that went to school in these wards, and they're on this list, so if you need connections, I mean, we have the connections
Okay.
to, half the schools on this list, we have personal connections, so please use us. If they're not responding, use us.
So that is a yes to add
Well,
them?
we have to,
Yeah.
I have to
Okay.
make a motion and
Okay, fantastic.
so, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All right, approved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. It'll go to the council with a positive recommendation. All right.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions? I got a lot more, but I won't.
Well,
I have a quick question, if you don't
Sure,
mind, Chairman.
please, please.
And this is kind of for Wesley, too. So you showed the outside the picture of the community housing office over there off of Washington Street, and you were talking about putting pine needles down
Yes.
every year. My thoughts are, and I love gardening, but I'm not, by any stretch of the means, a gardener or landscaper. But what about tilling the earth, adding soil? Because that way you could have it already, some stuff planted already this spring and not have to wait a whole year for the pine needles. Is that an option?
It can be an option, but also, you remember there's a crepe myrtle right there, and their roots and their knees are up above the ground, so we're trying to work around that, and we have to see where we're going to put, let's say, we're going to put rhododendrons there,
Okay.
and maybe some ferns. But it's so hard to plant anything, you can't go no more than 2 inches in the ground right now. So it has to have it's got to have some soil and some nutrients. And the way to do that was to at least do some kind of organic matter to get it started. But now, around the edges, on the side of the buildings, yes, you can do that. But right there in that area is compacted.
A lot of that comes from the sun as well, dehydrating the soil so much, being on a cement, being around cement is so hot there, so the mulch keeps the temperature up a little bit.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate this. This is some, I will probably email my questions, but thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we will get an update from Winfield Properties.
Good afternoon. I'll just introduce Craig Stone. You all have seen Craig many times, Craig Stone with Winfield Properties, and he's going to give you an update on some projects that are ongoing and even some upcoming projects that we may be looking at. So, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
I work in IT part-time. I'll be right.
I don't work in IT. Thank
You just hit enter.
you. My name is Craig Stone with Winfield Properties. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before everybody and also working with staff and everybody involved as always. It's been a pleasure to do so. I wanted to give sort of a couple of updates. We have a number of things in progress, a number of things that just we applied, and then a number of things in the future that we're working on. So it's a constant sort of rotation of things. I think from the standpoint of things that are most recent that we were working on, as an update for the 2023 development cycle, one of the things that I would say that most folks are used to, predominantly what we use in most cases, because it's one of the best forms of financing, leverage financing for the affordable industry, is tax credits. This year, we are introducing also the option of using some 4% credits. But as you may know, with a number of the projects that we've done in the past, Addington, Admiral, Kirkwood, Hartley, Avondale, those properties, those are 9% tax credit sites. And so in that regard, this year, we do have in the 9% round that was submitted about 2 weeks ago, the flats at Old Winston Road. That's a 72-unit family deal that starts the process for this year that goes from January to August. Also in that process and new this year is a 4% low-income bond as well, and that was done for the lofts at Brentwood, the old Brentwood school site. That was, we took 120 units and placed it on that site, and it started the process there. That also goes on a similar cycle. One thing that's unique about the bond cycle is there's actually 2 rounds. The round that started at the 1st of January, and then there's another round that opens up not too terribly long from now and runs through, I believe, September of the year. So we've got 2 rounds for the 4% and then 1 round for the 9%. So those are some things that we're excited about that are in progress right now for the future, and ones that have been applied for. And then as an update to what we're currently working on, Abbey Crossing is in progress right now. I think we actually have some photos that are also included, but unfortunately you've got a bad operator of all of this information, so we'll be getting to those. But to give you sort of a timeline of everything, we submitted in January the preliminary applications for the lofts at Brentwood, the flats at Old Winston Road, and in progress we have the Walnut Ridge application, which we are working to close the land on currently, and also working with staff on that. I think that there's some funds there. And then also Abbey Crossing. We expect to close complete out the building cycle for Abbey Crossing and have that available for the folks of High Point in June, and it looks like everything is progressing along there. We have a final deadline in May for the final applications for the lofts at Brentwood and for the flats at Old Winston, so you can see sort of that development timeline there. And then we would look in August of this year for announcements to be made if we're fortunate enough to get something. I will say this year, the tax credit world, last year, the Housing Finance Agency received close to $190 million to really help the projects that were sort of install mode, because there was about 7,000 units in the state of North Carolina that were sort of stalled, because from the start of COVID throughout, there had been a number of cost increases. We were able to keep a number of the deals going, but one of the things is the CV funds that came, those $190 million of state money to the Housing Finance Agency got dispersed to those 7,000 units. And so those funds have moved a backlog of units through the process. One of those that was able to apply for funds was Abbey and some of the other stuff that had been done, and that's moving through its cycle right now. This year, though, unfortunately, there are no companion funds. So this year, we do not have WIP funds that we normally would have, and we also this year do not have any of the funds at the federal level that we hoped were in the last omnibus bill that were a 12.5% increase to the credits. So what you're likely looking at is somewhere between maybe 19 to 22 deals this year out of the Housing Finance Agency, where normally the Housing Finance Agency is able to stretch dollars and have as much as 40 deals. So it's going to be an incredibly, incredibly competitive, challenging year this year. So I just preface that as saying, it seems to never get easier. This year is a little bit different. There's even less funds, and so there's a number of things that are working this year. So in August, September, we would hope to hear the awards if we're fortunate enough to get an award, and we have a couple of things that are in the process this year for the application and for funding. One thing that I will also add to it is we're working on some other stuff with staff. Staff has pushed us to get some other things in progress, and we have another bond site that we are speaking about right now. That could potentially go in another bond application before the end of the year, so that would be submitted before September. Here is a site rendering that was submitted last week or week before last as a preliminary site rendering for the flats at Old Winston, and here's one for the lofts at Brentwood. One thing that I will say is these right now are conceptual. We will move through the competitive process and will likely be changing the numbers that are involved. So the numbers that you see on the lofts at Brentwood will probably stay fairly consistent at 120 units. But on our other project, the flats at Old Winston, those unit counts will probably change, and it will probably pare down just a little bit to take advantage of some of the competitive natures of this year's QAP and as things move through the process. Here are some photos of Abbey Crossing. Some folks may have went by Samet Drive and seen the progress there. As you may know, that is attached sort of on the end of Samet Drive to Admiral Point, and then across the street, Addington, just for memory's sake. We also were successful in the last funding round for 2022 to receive an award for the Walnut Ridge application, which is an elderly application for senior living, two-story on Skeet Club Road. That is in the process right now of having plans, specifications, and some conversations with the municipal staff as well concerning it. And so it's moving through all of its cycles right now. And we are in the process right now trying to finalize plans to where we can get to the point of submitting something over to TRC and start those conversations with DOT and those kind of things. From the standpoint of that we have as an update with some of the stuff that's recently moving in, I don't know if there's questions, but we have quite a bit. I've condensed it down very quick and probably spoke way too fast. But want to answer if there's any questions about what we currently have in the pipeline. I've got some other things to talk about, but wanted to open up to see if there's any questions on anything that's in progress right now.
Thank you, Craig. Would you mind going back to the Brentwood site? I would ask that, wouldn't I?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we tried to take advantage of was that site as much as possible and get as much density as we could. This is certainly not a final application. We'd certainly have to meet with TRC and go through everything, but this is a preliminary rendering of what we saw. Is there maybe a question about the design we could help with?
Well, the density part was minor than the number of stories. I was curious about, just that primary part I wanted to.
We tried to maximize the site as much as possible. They're not making a lot of new land, and so when we do have access to a site that meets all the criteria for the city, for the application process, everything, we try to use this as much as possible. One thing that's unique for this site, as opposed to some of the 9% sites, we are able to get more units. We actually did look at this site as a 9% site. As a 9% site, it would be pared down to about 60 to 80 units. This is a 4% site. We're able to get 120 units. The 4% applications will require some additional gap financing that we're currently looking at and working on, but you do get more units out of it. So we're able to, basically serve more folks in the community with a 4% application as opposed to a 9.
And you said this one is that 120?
120 units. One thing that's also helpful here is this particular site, I believe, is in a QCT, which is a qualified census tract. What that allows us to do is take and multiply that equity in those credits by an extra 30%. So when we're out trying to put this together, that money and that equity gets that 30% boost that allows us to reduce the need for gap financing. So that's one of the things that's in play here.
Thank you.
Quick question, this is Councilman Jefferson. So in terms of where this is, can you talk to me about some of the constraints? Because I know in the past, we've had where we're looking to do some of these mixed income developments and get support through tax credits, where it's had to be in proximity to a certain number of amenities and grocery stores, stuff like that. Is this a location that falls under similar constraints, or because it's a different financing vehicle, how different are those constraints given that it's a different financing vehicle?
That's a very good question. One of the things, the tax credits themselves, whether we're talking about the 4% or the 9%, they're essentially the same program in some regards, but they're different also, sort of like an apple and a pineapple. They both have the apple in the name, but they're two different things. With the 4% side, you're able to get a little more size and scale because you've got less benefit of equity. And so it is less competitive, a little bit harder to put together. And the rules related to access to lifestyle amenities are not as competitive as on the 9% side. So we're able to go with some of the distances a little bit further in what we do to meet the criteria. With the 9% side in the other application, the flats at Old Winston, it would have a similar set of rules related to its requirements in the QAP for access to lifestyle amenities. And you're talking about, in most cases, less than a half mile access in most cases, but it's sort of make or break when you look at something like the flats at Old Winston. The flat at Old Winston meets all of the current 9% QAP for a perfect 60 site score, and the loss at Brentwood does not have to meet that same criteria. It's allowed a little bit of leeway, and that's one of the benefits of utilizing the 4%. The 4% is more difficult. It allows for a little bit more transactional volume and allows for a little bit more benefit in units, but it is also a little bit more difficult when it comes to gap financing and those types of things.
Yeah, which is where a city can come in and be a really good partner or something like that.
Yes.
Do you have the specifics? I mean, I get the score, and so imagine there's this range with that score. So when you start talking about the footprint, like the boundary, you mentioned within half mile for that 9% piece, on something like this, is it just to get a decent score, you stay within a couple miles? Because I'm thinking about where this is in proximity to, I think the closest is on Fairfield, closest grocery store is Fairfield and South Main.
Right.
So we actually submitted this site 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and we have met all of the requirements of the 4% application process. It is not the same score as the 9% round. When we did the scoring process for the 9% round, I believe that one of the concerns was access to school, or access. It was the access to grocery and pharmacy, and I think that there was within about a half mile, that the difference was there. The lofts at Brentwood, as a 4% application, meets and would not be thresholded. As a 9% application, it would not receive a 60. And so really competitively, as difficult as it will be this year, it just wouldn't stand as good a chance.
Yeah, no, I get that part. I guess I'm just asking for the sake of posterity and just knowing, do you know how far this is from that grocery store pharmacy area?
The food line from this site is 1.8 miles, I believe.
Okay.
And then the Walgreens, which is also on Main, is right at 2 miles.
Right, the same amount.
So the threshold for the agency scoring system is a mile and a half. So once you get over that mile and a half, you start getting site deduction points. And the 4% round, it's not as lucrative because it's not as competitive.
Because it's not as competitive, yeah, I get that part. And heck, I mean, at a certain point, in order for us to invest in our core, where we have so many of our food deserts and medical deserts and pharmacy deserts, and I mean, I can keep going with the deserts.
It's a challenge.
You got to get really creative and find these financing vehicles through the 4% types, and find ways for cities to be partners. So, no, I honestly, I love this. I'm grateful that we were able to find something. You know, that's a unique site because it's got that easement there with this big power line, so it doesn't allow for anything structural to go there. But hopefully, if we ever get to it, if we can re-engage in a conversation, maybe our CD department can chat with the folks over at Cooperative Extension or Growing High Point or someone, and we can look at doing some gardens right there. Since I know you can't do anything structural, but you apparently, from what I hear, you can do agriculture along those easements, as long as they can get to their, I don't know, you guys know what for those not listening, I'm making the sign of sorry, y'all, it's 4:00 in the afternoon, whatever the thing is called, y'all know what I'm talking about. So no, I'm sorry, I say all that to say, hopefully we can re-engage in that conversation and at some point maybe even look at doing some urban ag right there. I think what attracts us to the opportunities that can become sort of multidimensional is, yes, let's bring housing, but let's also address real concerns around food security. And if we're going to expand outside that footprint of the half mile, that's fine, right? Because we got to get creative. But can we do something such as urban ag, which can say that we're still making a commitment to address food security? And I don't think that becomes more of a cost necessarily to developers, hopefully. Hopefully you can partner with some of our local nonprofits and the city can support that kind of thing too, so.
One of the things I learned today that I make sure that we will be reaching out for Admiral Point, we have raised beds there that are ultra competitive to get access for our elderly community, and it's amazing how competitive they can be for access. But we have a number of raised beds in a community garden and station that we built there, and that would be something that we might be able to participate in the program, and that's something that we've done in the past. And so my father was a 4-H member, and so that's something that we would seek and participate with in the future, and it works great. I know in a number of the locations that we've worked with staff on that are sort of in the core, there are a couple of community gardens that we've tried to develop some properties near, and that's one thing that always works great. It's just really a good sort of synergistic piece.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that part. I didn't realize how competitive it is. That's awesome. I'm curious, and we don't have to talk about this, I guess, here. I'm just thinking about more housing opportunities, and unless I'm mistaken, I think that church property next to it is up for sale. Is that correct? Living Water. Did I hear that correctly?
I don't know if it is. We've asked, but we've not received response.
We heard that it was, but that's not been confirmed, I don't think. It's just kind of
Okay.
hearsay.
Sorry, y'all can scratch that from the record. I think it was just my curiosity. I was thinking out loud, sorry.
Okay. One other thing that is not on the slide that staff has really pushed on that we can share some information on at this point, but we're in the process of working through, is also another site that is in progress that I think it caters towards also what you're saying. Well, we're trying to get creative. And so,
Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. You should have started with this, man. Could have got this conversation a lot faster. Ward 1, Chris.
And your staff has worked diligently to push things like this and develop over the course of time. And so we are currently working on this particular site. It would accommodate up to 372 units, and what we would be able to present as we're moving through the process is something that would move anywhere from a 30% to 120% income range. So what that would allow us to do is to fulfill some needs through the 4% application process, and then also introduce what is called workforce housing that allows us to expand on the tax credit rental guidelines and move into what is called workforce housing, which would allow us to go up to 120 units. So what our plans right now, and they're very preliminary, and we have some talks that are ongoing with the folks at the county and some other things. This would be something that would be a future application and would be stepped in stage in addition to a workforce application as well.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you for this. Sorry, can I get clarity? Let me turn my mic back on. Can I get clarity on a couple of things? So I see the 4% project and then the workforce housing project. Are we, and it talks about how the workforce housing would run concurrently with the 4% project. So does that mean, if I'm mathing right, am I supposed to like add these two unit parts together, and this is 372 units potentially?
So what this would be is really, they would work in concert with each other, but it would be up to a total of 372 units. That number comes from what we can fit. This is a challenging site. There's quite a bit of topography movement. You've got more than 40 feet on this particular site, which is difficult. And so what you've got is a number of different challenges here, but what it presents is a good opportunity to have quite a number of units. And what it would present is likely one particular application is a 4% application and one application as a workforce that we could bring together in one location, and they would work together. I think one of the goals that has been communicated to us is to introduce additional income ranges and to have, you know, some further sort of income parity in what we do and getting creative as proposed earlier. And so what we're trying to do in this particular application is to present some options and to also bring together two different funding sources. Now, there is quite a bit of challenges here, and there's quite a bit of gap need that we're trying to flush out right now, but this is the type of thing where in partnership we can work together and really start to tackle the number of affordable units that are needed in the community.
So a couple thoughts, just a couple thoughts. And I know all the folks who spend time on this daily know way more about this than I do. So I won't pretend to speak from like someone, only pretend to do my best, right? To just be dangerous enough to know what I need to know on stuff like this. But I you know, it's not lost on me that this is right inside an opportunity zone, which I don't know what kind of impact that has on what you all do. In terms
It is a
of
benefit.
If that ends up being positive in terms of securing some potential investment, then great. I think the other thought that's on my mind is that, you know, we've got that bypass, Jamestown bypass, which just connected right there into 5 Points. And if I'm sort of thinking correctly, part of what we were thinking with future growth there, as we were looking at some of the rezoning and planning that we just did around that area, was that this are the exact kind of projects that we'd like to see come to that area. Because it's also a gateway right into our city. It's also an area, I mean, seeing these two different types of housing, as you said, we get creative, but we also diversify there the kind of population and different kinds of income that can come there, which makes it really attractive, which I think then becomes a domino, quite frankly, that starts inviting some other opportunities. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's a secret where I stand in terms of where the city stands and needs housing. So forgive me, Chairman Williams, for harping on this. But this might be the thing that's got me most excited today, outside of waking up and seeing my wife and kids. This is the thing that's probably got me most excited today. Because if we can make this happen, whatever the city can do to support this kind of thing, I think it catalyzes, as I said before, a domino that invites more investment to around that bypass into a gateway into our city, which I think could be really beneficial for everyone within our city. Probably attract the grocery store back there, as the Save-A-Lot has been gone now for several years. At some point, I think as we get more investment, it attracts a grocery store back there. It's the kind of gift that can keep on giving if we can figure it out, right? It's really challenging. So I'm looking forward to discussing it again.
Yeah, and creatively, this is a site in a location that allows us, if you think about the folks we serve and you think about those income ranges all the way from 30 to 120%, and you think about the access you're talking about from a DOT access, those kind of things, it allows us to serve our folks and them to have lifestyle amenity and access in a way. I mean, we're not talking about here when we're talking about the need of one or two projects. We're talking about over the course of time more and more, and I think through COVID, the need has gotten worse. And so we are very vertically integrated in what we do. We do the development work, we do the building and construction, we do the management. We also have access to our own supply company, HVAC and plumbing needs and those kind of things, and it allows us to work a little bit more synergistically on the approach and reduce that gap need that we need. We've got a range of probably up to 1,500 units a year that we can operate and produce, so we have scale that allows us, when we're purchasing materials, to be able to operate in a little bit better capacity than most. So then you take a site like this where we can combine two different ranges of folks in the same area, and then you also get the benefit of the bypass that's there and some of the things that are going on in this area, and then some of the things that tie in to the school and other things. It's just it's a wonderful opportunity. So we are very humbly and diligently working on this. I will say that staff has presented and worked very diligently on this and working behind the scenes quite a bit. They get all of the credit really for everything that's going on here, and they've pushed very hard on this. So I know that they are working tremendously to try to give a number of options. We have some other things that we're working on outside of this. We don't want to put too much on the table right now, but this is some of the stuff that we're working on. And I will say it is a challenge. The gap need right now is difficult to face. There's no way around it. When we started COVID, we were at 1 construction per square foot number, and that number is long gone. And so what that means is if we're renting to folks and we're trying to bring those rents down to an affordable level at whatever their income set aside is, we've got to write those costs down. And so we are working on that. There's going to be some challenges with that, but we are trying to creatively present ideas and work together collaboratively to try to present solutions to house more folks in the community.
Nice.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I'll just say, I think one of the things that we need to be clear about when we're talking to the community, when we're talking about projects like this, we're talking about mixed incomes. Mixed incomes build communities, mixed incomes, and more rooftops is what create or brings in big box stores to the area. So it's like what Councilman Jefferson said, it's a domino effect. For us, it was like cart before the horse for the longest time because of where they wanted, where you could get those credits, where outside of food deserts, now we can get these credits inside, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you, and I'll trust that y'all just keep us posted and how we can look into it and be a part. I'm with him when it comes to partnering with these projects. I think it's going to be very important in how we continue to grow as a city. We're going to have to house people, and we're going to have to find creative ways to get it done. So thank you.
We are not able to creatively find the flat sites, so there is some topography challenges here, but we're looking for those flat sites as well.
Awesome. Great.
we've got about 40 feet of fall on this particular site.
It's quite a topo map there.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you all do.
Yes.
Whatever support you need.
We appreciate very humbly working with everybody in the community council, all of the boards and municipal staff. It's our pleasure. I grew up in the area, and we've always enjoyed everything that we've done, and we look forward to it, and we're trying to work diligently. These communities are hard. There's a lot of strife and different things to get to the finish line, but we are trying. Any other questions?
Thank you.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good news. I like agendas like this. We always talking about feeding and housing people. I love it. So the next item is the update from the Gifford County Continuum of Care. And I will have questions after this.
I'll just introduce Sherry Neal. She's been here before to present to you all, and she is the COC Program Manager with Guilford County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Good to see some of you. We see each other in a lot of different places now. So I'm here today to just kind of give you all an update of kind of how things have been going around the continuum of care as it relates to Greensboro and High Point, but specifically to talk about High Point, of course. So just recently, we just completed the point in time count, which affects our entire community and about the dollars of funding that we received here in the community. I would say that it was a success. We had the participation of the High Point Police Department, who was a vital partner in this. Of course, the city staff, of course, was very involved with this process. And then we had some great donors that I want to make sure that I mention specifically. Around High Point University, they provided 500 bags to be able to give out that night. They did that as a part of their MLK service project. Then we had the High Point Peacemakers, and if I'm not mistaken, that was the group that actually donated 500 tents. United Way of High Point, and then Open Door Ministries of High Point. So great participation. We didn't have that many teams here in High Point this year, but we're working on that for next year to kind of fulfill some of those gaps. I think that one of the things, just so you'll be aware, we probably went out a little early, and so it was cold at night, but it wasn't, I think at the point, we didn't have a white flag night per se, so that I think that had an effect on some of the numbers. But since then, since that point, which happened on January the 25th, you technically have 7 days from that day, and so teams have gone out in High Point since that time to come and count and go to the library as well as to all the shelters. And then when the shelters were feeding that next day, there were follow-up there. So I'm not worried that the numbers won't be represented properly, but just know that the night of, it just wasn't a lot of people out that night. We also did a youth point in time count. We had some universities that were able to participate. Just recently, we've been working on the gaps analysis, which will affect the community here. And so we're really just we're in the draft stages of that. And so we're hoping that that will be finished by the first week in March, so that would then, the COC will then communicate that out to the communities around what the gaps analysis is telling us about our community, as well as around what needs and gaps that we could address around our housing and homelessness. Just recently started, we had asked that our community really needed some help around coordinated entry. So coordinated entry is kind of the point of entry where a lot of our, those that are experiencing homelessness or maybe literally homeless or at risk can contact what we call our Partners Ending Homelessness. And so we, of course, in this time have had some challenges with that system, and we have asked for technical assistance from HUD, and so they have granted us with that technical assistance. And so we met with them today, and so they will actually be here. They've decided that there's a need for them to come on site, so they are going to do an escalation to HUD so that they can come on site and really come and immerse themselves in our community and really learn about some of the things that we're doing, address some of our policies and procedures and our practice, and of course, looking at things around how we are responding around domestic violence, our race and equity issues that are going on. And so we're really excited about that, because I think that'll be very helpful for our community, as there's been a lot of conversation about where do people go, and how they can be contacted. To give you another update, one of the things that are going with it that is an actual county function, but ties into all of this work, is the eviction mediation clinic. You know that part of the clinic has expanded to High Point to 2 days a week, so it's 2 days in High Point, 2 days in Greensboro. Those days of the week are Mondays at 1 p.m. and Thursdays at 10 a.m. That seems to be going very well. There are residents coming, even on the days they're not scheduled for court, but they can come and talk to legal aid as well as the mediation. If they need mediation, landlords can show up, which are happening now. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can share that with Nina, and then she can forward that to you if you all would like to see that. But that's been a good success, and then I meet with them probably twice a month, just kind of doing check-ins and making sure that progress are being made and any issues or concerns are being addressed. One of the other pieces that the county has added is we're also working with, we'll have a landlord engagement specialist, and that landlord engagement specialist, not to take away with the work that's already been done with the agency, but to really enhance and be really laser focused on the community as a whole and not just agency specific. So we'll be partnering with that. We'll partner with our housing authorities to talk about how we can expand and bring landlord engagement. We may be back in front of you talking about how we can do incentives to these landlords, because we really need their support in expanding and around voucher. I know Nina and her team have been doing a great job engaging with our High Point Housing Authority and looking at ways how we can expand voucher for our tenant-based community. So those are things that will continue being worked on. Update on another piece that is happening right now is we're working on the evaluation with our coordinated entry and what we call HMIS, which is our Homeless Management Information System. So again, it's time for evaluation. So we're looking at what's the data going in, what's the data coming out, what could we enhance? So those things are going on right now. We're hoping that sometime this year we can do a kickoff with an initiative with our faith-based community to try to enhance capacity and look at funding opportunities and address some of these needs. Just a piece that I have been able to coordinate is we also coordinated with our Medicaid Transportation, who has been very gracious to give bus passes for those that are experiencing homelessness. So they've been able to get them for High Point, Greensboro, as well as our park. And so we're working with our street outreach teams as well as those that do housing, like housing specialists and case managers, to be able to fulfill that need, so that's no longer a barrier, so people can get to their medical appointments, behavioral health needs, if they need to go, to the store or get to an appointment or whatever is needed, even employment options, because some people think, but a lot of our individuals that are experiencing homeless also go to work, even though they may live in a tent. And so we're also trying to look at ways how we can remove barriers and make this more of a situation that we can remove that barrier, then we can continue to work on the housing piece of it. Let's see. Oh, okay. I think that's about it. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
No.
Thank you. It's a lot, but it's
Okay.
good.
All right.
Good. Thank you so
Can I
much.
just
Good to
add
see you,
something?
Sherry.
She mentioned the Housing Authority, and I did just want to let you know, one of the things that the Executive Director, Angela Jimenez, has said is that they have 400-plus individuals with housing vouchers that cannot find units. And so what we're doing is we're actually entering into a contract with them to provide $20,000 for landlord incentives. That was something that she said that was very successful when they had their ARPA funds and they were able to provide those funds to the landlords. They recruited, I think it was about 22 more landlords, just providing that incentive. And so that's, they're looking at $350 to landlords that are currently on the program, and then, of course, $350 for new landlords that enter leases within our contract period. So that's something she said that was very successful.
And that's for the initial agreement, signing of a lease?
Yes, yes, yes.
That's good to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the last item I have here is a resolution of conveyance of properties to Habitat for Humanity of High Point, Archdale, and Trinity, which is my favorite Habitat for Humanity agency, I'll say. And this is for the 801 Vale Avenue and 807 Amos I'll turn the floor over to Nina.
Thank you. Yes, this item is for us to convey these 2 lots, as you say, to one of our great housing partners, Habitat for Humanity of High Point, Archdale, and Trinity. It's 801 Vale Avenue, which you may recall was a lot that we actually combined, 801 Vale and 802 Amos, and then 807 Amos Street. And they, of course, will build 2 units that will be affordable to folks that are around 50 to 60% of the AMI. A little bit lower? 40 to 50% AMI. And so the conveyance would allow them to facilitate affordable housing in accordance with HUD regulations and serve a public purpose. And they currently have 2 units that are under construction in the Southside neighborhood, and this conveyance will ensure that they can continue to be able to provide affordable units for homeownership. And this development will also help us in assisting to continue the revitalization of the Southside community. There is no budget impact for the conveyance of the lots, and we have entered into a CHOTO agreement with Habitat for $60,000, which is our participation and contribution toward the construction of the 2 units. And so we are requesting approval of the resolution to convey the properties.
Thank you, Nina. I will open the floor for questions for staff, if y'all have any. If you have not, then I'll just make this quick comment. If you haven't seen some of the most recently built Habitat for Humanity homes, you are missing out. Beautiful floor plans, great neighborhoods, transformative even when it comes to things such as crime, believe it or not. It really has reduction effect on it. So, but just wanted to put that out there. So if y'all haven't had a chance to take a look, just have a conversation with our local Habitat agency. They can walk you through it.
I'll also say, we keep talking about building trades, and we need more people in the building trades. I'm in the building trades. Believe me, we need more people in the building trades. And one thing that Habitat does so well is it's a training ground for HVAC, electric, plumbing, all of these that need second licensures. You can get your service hours doing that, and that's required for getting any of those licenses. You have to have a certain number of hours after graduation, and Habitat is one of the best places to get those hours. It's a great supervision. It's a great opportunity for them to learn, but also it's a great way for them to serve while learning. So, didn't know if you're all aware that happens as
And
well.
I'll add to that. I was framing houses, like, just a few months ago. Never framed a home before. Took our team, who were basically office administration staff, and we outworked the work for the day. So we went from don't understand what this is to, oh yeah, okay, what you got next? And it was like, I got nothing. So it really is a true statement.
And I would like to give Susan Wood, she's here with us today, give her an opportunity to speak if that's appropriate.
Chris, you are a perfect volunteer. You can figure out that the pointy end goes towards the wood and the flat end to the hammer. After that, we can train anybody to do anything. You know, we often work with school systems, Guilford Tech, Community Against Violence, their carpentry program, to give people some hands-on work in those trades, because we do know how difficult it is to find licensed tradespeople in our community. So, you know, not only are we offering families the opportunity to buy a home with a 25-year zero-interest mortgage, we are also offering training and giving some young people the spark of construction. So we love doing that on the job site. And you all are invited out anytime to build. And on Chris's recommendation, next time we have a house that's complete, please grant me the opportunity to come back and invite you all for a walkthrough. It'll be a house for Rika. She works at High Point Central in the kitchen, and her smile lights up a world when she talks about her house. So I'd love for her to show you through her house with her kids. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your consideration. That property means the world to us.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for staff or?
Make a motion to approve a resolution?
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes with a positive recommendation to council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, we appreciate it. And just as far as volunteering, you have your Operation In As Much flyers, April 29th. If you're interested in coming out and joining our team, we would certainly welcome you.
Okay. I'm going to say one thing real quick about
Yes.
that. 3 more?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I like to take some with me too. I can probably put this with our staff across the street to help. But I'm going to be full disclosure. See that date? The 29th?
After market.
Can you say that louder, Councilman Jefferson?
That's the week after market.
Okay.
Yes.
I promise you, I will do my very best to show up. I will not be of much use.
I tell you, we have to try to plan around market and HPU graduation.
Yeah.
So I'm
and
sure HPU graduation is probably the next weekend, so we have to kind of squeeze it in there.
I get it.
But we appreciate any help
Yeah.
we can get.
I'll say what I said the last time. If you need a couple of hours on door knocking so that we can convince the people that we want to serve, it's not a scam, I'll be glad to do it.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Just let me know. Everybody has my contact info, and I will be there. I will be there, but I cannot promise a level of service because I won't have much left.
Thank you much, we appreciate it.
Well, you gotta be better than I was that time painting that house.
Oh.
With Maria.
That's okay.
I was calling my husband, I said, guess what I'm doing? He's like, what? And I said, painting a house. He's like, what? And I said, no, literally. He's like, you. But anyway, but it is a great fellowship opportunity.
It is.
And so it's a great operation in as much as.
So count me in. Go ahead. if you got-
I did want to, there are 3 more items on the agenda. Just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss anything. We don't want to leave,
Okay.
we don't want to leave Lori out, okay?
Got you. I am so sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the next item is ordinance of demolition of dwelling 805 Gordon, and now I turn the floor over to Lori. Sorry, Lori.
That's okay. Once last month, now this month, I'm seeing a pattern. Let's see, okay. Oh,
And I definitely don't want to mess up our, well, never mind, I'll hold up on that.
Consent agendas are good.
That's what I was going to
Really
say,
like
but I didn't want to.
You're all good news, and then local codes comes up, so, sorry. So the first property is 805 Gordon Street. We had originally inspected this property in January of last year, 2022. We held a hearing in March 21st of 2022. One of the heirs did attend for the hearing, Miss Eloise Riley, and she stated that she planned to fix the property for her son to live in. She was working on obtaining the money and someone to make the repairs, but in order to repair or demolish was issued, and that was issued on March 21st, 2022, with a compliance date of April 29th, 2022. A notice was sent to the inspector from, this is heir property as well, so there's a few people involved in this, and a letter was sent to the inspector dated March 29th stating that the heirs disagreed with the decision of the inspector, and the note also stated that they would, the house would be repaired no matter the cost. They just asked for the time to make the repairs. On April 28th of 2022, the grandson of the owner called and advised the inspector that they were receiving 2 quotes. Then on May 10th, a daughter called, a Miss Valda Duncan, and stated they're still trying to get an estimate. And then an estimate that they did turn in on August 16th was for $60,000. They submitted a copy of that to us, and that was only for the repair of the foundation. On October 14th of 2022, the inspector spoke to Ms. Duncan again. She advised she would talk to her mother and get back with him, and the inspector let her know that the case couldn't continue, as we typically do. We try to give them a heads up, please do something, otherwise it'll go to city council or go to committee. Then on November 18th of 2022, the inspector called Ms. Duncan and left a voicemail to return his call, and then again on December 21st, left another one stating the property may be considered for demolition, and to ask them to call us back. And they are delinquent in Guilford County taxes for 2019 through 2022 in the amount of $2,971.
Thank you, Lori. Are there any questions, staff, on this one? All right, for protocol's sake, I will ask, is there anyone here to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve item 2023-05 057, demolition of dwelling, 805 Gordon Street.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. I will, excuse me, all in favor, I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right, that motion is passed. I will go on to the next item of 2023-058, ordinance demolition of dwelling, 1109 East Russell Avenue. Laura?
This property we originally inspected in September 11th of 2019. We held a hearing on January 27th of 2022. No one appeared for the hearing. On that date, we issued an order to repair or demolish with a compliance date of February 27th of 2020. The owner, Mr. LeGrand, told the inspector in February of 2020 that he'd just received money to make the repairs, and he would call the inspector back once he got started. During 2020, the inspector attempted several times to contact the owner. Sometimes he was able to leave a voicemail, and other times it stated his voicemail was full and he was not able to. In January 2021, Mr. LeGrand advised the inspector that he had been dealing with some serious family matters and that he had been sick and requested additional time. In January of 2022, the mortgage holder advised the inspector they would begin foreclosure process, and they are delinquent in taxes for 2019 through 2022 in the amount of $3,571.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions for staff? All right, is there anyone here for or against this item? In that case, I make the motion to approve item 2023-058, demolition of dwelling 1109 East Russell Avenue.
Second.
I got a quick question though. East Russell.
Do you want to say-
Actually, I want to change that. I'm going to just go ahead and make the, go ahead and move this forward. I got a question about an address right close to it. I thought that this was it.
Okay.
But I don't think so. But anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion is approved and moved forward to council on the consent agenda. Last item is 2023-056, ordinance rescinding demolition of 2010 Underhill.
And this is a property I showed last night. Was it last night at council? My days are running together. That was repaired. We'd had an ordinance passed for demolition December of 2020, and they got a CO the end of December of 2022, and we finalized our case the first part of January. So we're just asking for the ordinance to be rescinded now.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second to rescind demolition order 2010 Underhill.
Quick
All-
question, Chairman, I'm just curious. So this one, just tracking on our dates, December 2020 vote for demolition. And then I guess within that 60 days that we normally give, they start working on stuff, I guess, in that and.
I hope I have improved that process, because what would happen is after the ordinance would be passed, people would come up and say all sorts of things, and sometimes they would sell the property at the last minute, and then we would be stuck in the middle trying to tell the people they had to repair the house or tear it down, and sometimes they weren't always prepared, and they didn't know about the property when they purchased it. Since then, because they wouldn't do a title search or didn't know to do a title search. But since then, we have a document that I have that legal drew up several months ago that has shortened that process a little bit. But yes, during that time, it was a little more drawn out sometimes, unfortunately.
Well, it's good. Do you have a picture of what it looks like?
That's what she showed us
I
last.
showed last night, and it's rental, it was,
show it.
yes,
I
that's
wasn't
okay.
looking at the
It may still be on the computer. If you want me to pull it up, I may can find it.
No, Tyrone Johnson said it looked nice, so I trusted it.
Much improved, definitely. Got rid of a junk
Yes, yes, it
vehicle, and there's going to be rental property as well, the owner said. And he's actually looking, it took him quite a while, but he did do it. But he says he's looking for other property to try and fix up as well, so.
Oh, really?
So this is two up from,
Yeah.
is that right?
You said 2010? Where did you say this is at?
210 Underhill.
Oh, yeah, so this is just one block up from 118.
Yeah, one,
From Coltrane's house.
Coltrane.
Right. And there's another house on Underhill that's being repaired. He is again another one that started a while back, and he's drawing it out, but he's moving. I think we have another, we have an ordinance for another house down there to be demolished, or they're repairing it. There's a lot going on, so I can't remember all of them.
My hope is that's going to be an area that's got some interest. That's why I'm glad to see that.
I was gonna say, you beat me right to what I was about to say. With Underhill and where it's positioned, you know, you've got the redevelopment of Daniel Brooks, which I think, you know, attracts opportunity, right? It's a mixed income there, and then Washington Street and just everything that's always happening there. So the opportunities that go with that, and then obviously it's right next door to HBU, and so it's a growing, bustling area, and so it's exciting to hear and see properties being restored, because our hope is never that we actually have to demolish. We just want to reduce the blight. Right. And so the hope is that you can add some accountability and someone's able to buy it, and then they have the bonus, they want to do more, which we love, so that's awesome.
I hope they can find a way to add that specific area to that map that we saw during the retreat, because that area signifies, at one point, the highest concentration of poverty in the city. Yeah, that's gone. That's going to be completely gone. So at least to that extent. So, yep, thank you. Oh, we had a motion on the floor. We haven't voted yet. Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. That motion passes. Positive recommendation on the consent agenda. Thank you, Lori.
Thank
Don't
you.
have anything else hidden anywhere else, do we? Okay. I do apologize for that. But thank everybody. If there's nothing else, we will stand adjourned. Have a great afternoon.